Yeah, and you can see here our trainers are just getting prepared for this round 5 here. We've got Adam on the right and then Alessio on the left. Alessio on your screen now. And looks like players have traded team sheets already. So like you say, we've got some interesting choices. We'll get the team information up on the screen in a moment so you all at home can see what both players are bringing. But I think the one thing like I wanted to mention from Alessio's team, I did mention it a little bit earlier, was something that had been used at the very start of Efficiency. Is coming back and having a lot of success already this season. It's in this tournament, I should say, is that Dragapult.
Yeah, it's amazing Pokemon. We have seen it a lot in Sword and Shield, where it was using its amazing speed and its decent attack and special attacks to really do a lot of damage. As we have here a bit of the accolades of Alessio Fuscà, which has in 2020 got the Bochum Regional Top 32, while Adam Cherfaoui has a bit more with the 2023 Malmö Regional Top 32, the 2023 Global Challenge Top 16, 2023 EUIC Day 2 as well, and the 2023 Global Challenge Top 16. A good job on the Global Challenges there.
Yeah, those tournaments are very, very difficult. So to get top 16 in those, it's very, very impressive accomplishment. Obviously making Day 2 at the recent EUIC event as well, and then obviously with that Malmo Top 32 recently as well from the regional that you've just been in attendance of.
Yeah, exactly. And yeah, even though Alessio might not have any recent accomplishments, that's always the thing about players coming back. They have that experience already. They know Pokemon is a game that overall stays the same, but there's new gimmicks introduced where you have a bit of more, where you have to put a spin on it and learn a few new things, and new speed tiers, and how fast and what a certain move does. But Pokemon is a game that you can easily go back to. And as we see Alessio being now 4-0, definitely showcasing that as well.
Yeah, like I say, you know, we are getting into the middle of the tournament now. So the players here have done, you know, a great job up to this point. 4-0 going into round 5. They're going to want to continue that unbeaten streak on. Obviously, only one player can go on undefeated, unfortunately.
That's true.
It'd be nice if everyone could go undefeated.
Oh, yeah,
but that
all hand in hand.
kind of defeats the point of the tournament. But yeah, I think like you mentioned, you make a good point about the Pokemon is kind of, it's transitional, isn't it?
Yeah.
You can play one format and you just need to get up to speed with maybe some of the new Pokemon, some of the new abilities, some of the new you know, like terrestrialization.
Yeah, exactly.
2020, what would we have been starting in Dynamax?
It is quite surprising.
So there is a big transition there, but maybe it's something that Alessio feels very comfortable with. He looks like he's got a really good team and obviously having a great start to the tournament today.
Yeah, exactly. As the teams themselves are quite interesting to see. As we mentioned the Dragapult earlier, as we have seen on the stream here, Outrage on Dragapult this time, not even on the Dragonite. This time opting to go for just only stabs, really, when it terrestrializes with a Terra Blast. Of course, the Choice Band next to Qimpao has always been nice, as the other Pokemon, Golnago, Amoonguss, Tauros, and Tinglu just make a very nice, formidable team where there's a lot of bulk going on. And if that Tinglu goes to the Terra Fire, you have a perfect Fire, Water, Grass core there.
You do, yeah. And the Amoonguss, again, like we've seen earlier today, going for that Water Terra type. It's what players seem to be opting for. No Protect there either, and opting for that Clear Smog as a way to kind of remove any stat boosts on an opponent's Pokemon, so keeping things in check, which it does pretty nicely. We don't have, like we've had in other teams, any safety goggles though on Alessio's team, so he doesn't have, if there is an Amoonguss on the opposite side of the field on Adam's team, which we know there is, he's going to have a few issues with the Amoonguss and maybe have to rely on that Tauros with the Grass Terra typing that it does have, and then relying on your own Amoonguss as well.
Yeah, exactly. Tinglu also being quite interesting because it has that Sand Tomb attack. Sand Tomb, of course, being a move that traps your opponent like Whirlpool and Fire Spin does, only working, of course, on opponents that can be hit by ground type moves, but just being sure to prevent your opponent from switching is a quite nice move, especially when you have some strong Pokemon next, left and right to it, like that Dragapult and the Qimpao as well.
Yeah, and I think we mentioned it earlier on where Francesco was originally at Liverpool Regionals using that Fire Spin Dragonite as a way to trap opposing Pokemon. And Tinglu's actually a really nice option here for being a trapper. It's got the defensive capabilities to come in a multitude of different scenarios onto the field and then trap something that's more favorable for you to get something beside it where you can then deal with that threat and then kind of go on from that stage without having to worry about that one specific Pokemon that was maybe causing you a few issues up to that point.
Yeah, exactly. Tinglu being one of those Pokemon that can just stay on the field for quite a bit. That's why people used to run Fisher. But now going the other way around, Tinglu a bit more support, trying to make sure that any Pokemon can be chipped down and damaged over like a turn of 5. So it's nice to have, for example, next to like for example Golden, if it sets up an Asplit, you're not sure if it KOs, but just that additional chip damage does happen to be very nice.
Yeah, and now we're going to move over to Adam, and we'll be able to see the team that he's running with that Fluttermane, the Amoonguss, Chi-Yu, Iron Bundle, Screamtail, and Annihilate.
Yeah, as we do see the Choice Specs Fluttermane return together with the Chi-Yu, which is Fluttermane, Chi-Yu, Iron Bundle doesn't really have, I don't feel like there's a combo name for it, but I want to just say they're all just fast and like support each other so very nicely, because Iron Bundle next to Chi-Yu, just being able to ice with anything, making sure for some speed control. Same for Fluttermane, really. Iron Bundle just proving time and time again, being such a nice support Pokemon to just use. It has a focus session instead of a booster energy, so naturally speaking, Iron Bundle should outspeed any Fluttermane without speed boosting booster energy. But you have that Screamtail with the booster energy instead, trying to make sure that you can use that Encore Disable gimmick a bit better as well. And of course, one of the other Pokemon that we have to mention is Annihilate, because I feel like Screamtail next to Annihilate seems like a very nice combination there.
Yeah, the one thing that you can notice on Alessio's team is he is running the Goldingo, but it doesn't have a Ghost type attack, so it makes it a little bit easier for things like that Annihilate to operate. It's not going to worry if it does go for its Terastallization. It's a Fire Terra type. It's not going to worry about the Make It Rain. Doesn't really care too much about Thunderbolt either, so it does feel like a strong option here, especially with, like you say, that Screamtail support next to it. And the Dragapult, I think, as well on Alessio's end does initially appear very strong, but it has to be careful about what it locks into, because there are 2 fairy types available straight away for Adam to kind of switch in and lock out any options for that Dragapult if it does lock into the Dragon Darts. I'm sure Alessio's aware of this. Or if he wants to take an opportunity to lock into an Outrage as well, then that can become pretty tricky in a bit of a void slot on the team if you lock into that and you've got both the Fluttermane and the Screamtail out at once. And you know, I think if you are Adam, if you can remove the Goldingo from Alessio's side of the field, your Fairy-type Pokemon have a pretty nice time, so that might be an angle that he's kind of going for initially to start with. Of course, if you've got your Fairy-types out, you're going to have to worry about that Amoonguss coming in. It's going to be able to soak up a lot of the damage, resists the Fairy-type attacks as well, and does disrupt through that Spore attack as well.
Yeah, exactly. As we do have the poll here that we saw, you can also vote. Who do you think will win here? Is it Alessio Fuscà or Adam Cherfaoui? Both, of course, seasoned players, have we already seen their accolades earlier, and we're getting right into it as we see the Fluttermane together next to Amoonguss, a combo as old as time, as the Dragapult together with Tinglu coming out, making sure that this Fluttermane will do a bit less damage thanks to its Vessel of Ruin.
Yeah, the Dragapult here in a nice position naturally outspeeds Fluttermane. Does have to be wary about the Amoonguss pulling in attacks from it with that Rage Powder, so can't really freely go for something like the Phantom Force that you would normally want to lock in on it here. Of course, Dragapult has the option to Terastallize, but do you want to go for that Terastallization so early on? You can go for it, of course, and maybe concentrate down on that Amoonguss slot, but you're going to have to lock in with the Dragon Darts here. You could also go for that Terra Blast, which is going to be super effective on the Amoonguss, but again, does Adam go for the Terastallization himself? So there's a lot of kind of questions in this first turn, a lot of options for both players here. The Fluttermane does feel like it's in a nice position to do some damage alongside that support from the Amoonguss right now.
Exactly. It's still choice spec, so it will still be extremely scary, as we do have the Terra activation onto that Dragapult, going for that Terra Fire, so any kind of Moonblast will be resisted, but Shadow Ball would still hurt quite a bit, or even Dazzingly will not hurt as we have the Terra activation of Adam as well, meaning 2 Terras in turn 1. The Terra onto that Amoonguss, go for that Terra Water, so Terra Blast Fire will not do that much damage if it should go into that Amoonguss, but it can still Oh, it's the Terra Blast actually going into that Flutter Mane, just being able to choice banner damage, and it survives on what seems to be 1 HP. Moonblast going into Dragapult, still hanging on there as as we have the Sand Tomb from the Tinglu into that Mungus, trapping it, meaning for 5 turns this Amoongus is stuck here with the Tinglu and the Dragapult.
Yeah, the Amoongus, nice terrestrialization there from Adam defensively, being able, what you thought was going to be able to take a big fire terror type after you saw Alessio's Dragapult terrestrialize there going into that fire type, but going actually into the Fluttermane there to try and remove that, but big survival there from the Fluttermane, returning with a Moonblast, not doing very much damage, but the Amoongus in a nice position now, has put that Tinglu to sleep where it can support with that potential Rage Powder this next turn, but we're seeing the Dragapult being kept for later as Goldingo makes his way onto the field.
Yeah, this is an excellent switch by Alessio, because of course that Fluttermane is locked into Moonblast. If it is able to kill this Tinglu, doing a bit over half there as the Tinglu decides to still take Eternal Sleep. Goldingo now being freely able to go for a Make It Rain or even possibly a Thunderbolt into that Amoongus slot, which would be possible range on that. So it's quite difficult to see. Fluttermane locking itself into Moonblast is quite important decision that's been made quite early, where I feel Adam is kind of regretting it right now.
Yeah, I feel like Alessio's in a nice position here to go even for a nasty plot with that Goldingo. He doesn't really worry about anything on the field. You know that the Fluttermane there, as it goes for that big knockout into the Tinglu, is locked into that Moonblast.
Yeah, Moonblast KOing it as the Make It Rain comes out from the Goldingo, just KOing that Fluttermane on its what seemed to be 1 HP Terra Fire Blast survival, as the Amoongus still on the field, but not really being able to do really anything against this Goldingo, as it went for a Pollen Puff, I believe, not really affecting here, trying to heal the Fluttermane if possible, in case Thunderbolt would not have KO'd it. But now Goldingo is at -1. And there's a Chiyu on the field suddenly as well.
Yeah, and the nice thing is that the perfect Pokemon almost at this point is that Aqua Breed Taurus that's come out onto the field, because it is going to threaten the Chiyu quite heavily with these water type attacks. You do have to worry about the Chiyu potentially going for its terrestrialization, because although normally we see grass terror type on Chiyu, this one is a ghost terror type, but still going to take away that super effective threat that's coming out from the Taurus right now. And I do like that last play from Alessio, where he didn't allow the Amoongus the opportunity to go for that Pollen Puff. Could have went for the nasty plot, like we said, to kind of set yourself up for later in the game, but deciding to really cut any options for Adam down and making sure that that Amoongus wasn't able to support and keep that Fluttermane on the field any longer.
Yes, Amoongus retreating, seeing the potential danger of a Thunderbolt or even a close combat, as it switches into that Scream Tail, and the boosted energy does activate its speed, being a bit faster now, as well as we have to protect from that Goldingo, just trying to make sure that the Chiyu does not damage it quite hard, as the Chiyu itself also going for the protect, meaning only this Tauros is going to be able to move this turn, and the Tauros is going to go for that close combat into that Chiyu, not effective in affecting it because of course it protected.
Yeah, unfortunately the old protect all round this turn. But the one thing that you can say is Adam now has that Scream Tail on the field and it is ready to disrupt. The Goldingo has just went for the Protect there, so it is going to be susceptible to Encore this next turn, getting locked in.
The Encore can happen, of course, but the ability, of course, good as gold, makes it sure that no status moves does affect it. After the Dazzling Gleam does come out onto this Tauros and into that Goldingo, not doing that much damage, as the Tauros is able to go for a Wave Crash, doing a bit of damage to that Amoongus with its newly typed water typing, not doing that much. So seeing maybe potentially close combat would have done more, but not wanting to be locked into that as well, because of course that Scream Tail is able to go for an Encore and disable in that regard. Tauros still having that nice priority, meaning it can break the lock of the Encore disable. So really having to decide what to do here, really.
Yeah, and I think the nice thing there, you pointed out that the Encore doesn't affect that good as gold ability there. So Goldingo feels like the one of the best Pokemon to sit in front of the Scream Tail, because not only has it got that immunity to it, like you mentioned, it is able to set up and then threaten with those Make It Rains that are going to be so detrimental to Scream Tail being able to do anything going further into this match.
Yeah, exactly. As the Screamtail did go for a Encore or a Disable there. Dancing Gleam, excuse me. Doing a bit of damage on the goal. Gologo just not really caring right now. Just going for another nasty plot. Now there's Gologo at +4 with the leftovers. Now Chiyu is right there, man. Fear this fish a bit.
The thing is, as well, I think if you are Alessio, in normal circumstances, you would think Goldingo's got the water terror typing. It can go for that terrestrialization, get a little bit of a better option against that Chiyu that's come onto the field now. But the terrestrialization has already been taken by the Dragapult, so that isn't an option. You have got +4. Can this make it rain? It probably is enough to get the Chiyu, but have you got enough to be able to survive yourself from the oncoming attacks from both of these Pokemon?
Yeah, Golden just going for another protect. Just Chiyu is back in the field. No, okay, you know what? I'm sorry. I'm just protecting for a bird turn as the Dazzling comes out and does manage to kill that Tauros there, doing over half there. Tauros going down, meaning only Dragapult is back as the Chiyu as well, going for the Heat Wave there, trying to, well, deal with this Golden really.
Yeah, and now the Dragapult can come back onto the field. It will threaten the Chiyu, but it's not really putting too much offensive pressure on that Screamtail, and the Screamtail with the Dazzling Gleam doesn't really have an offensive option to remove the Dragapult quite freely now with that Fire Terror typing that it's got.
Yeah, so you have to start thinking. You could go for, well, the thing is, whatever the Dragapult goes for, if it goes for Protect the Screamtail, it can possibly disable anything that this Choice Band Dragapult might go for to make it struggle, as we do see the double Protect here on their end. Meaning, what does the Dragapult go for? Draco Frigate, which is the Dragon Darts, if I recall correctly. So, meaning this Screamtail's gonna still put in some work, making this Dragapult just struggle with a possible disable, while the Make It Rain coming out from the Golden also not really affecting it.
No, and I think it's a nice option here that you've got. Like you mentioned, the disable is going to be viable onto that Dragapult now to lock it out and make sure that it's not able to get an attack off because of the smart kind of targeting with Dragon Darts. It would target into that Chiyu twice, potentially picking it up with that Choice Band boost that it's got access to. But as you say, here we go, there is the disable. The Dragapult no longer going to be able to threaten that Chiyu, leaving the Goldingo a little bit open to big attacks from this Chiyu. But Protect coming out this time, so we're going to go into one more turn. But the Dragapult really in a bad position here, where it is going to be locked into that struggle.
Yeah, that Chiyu now putting himself into Dark Pulse right now. Not really a lot of options you can do here, as the Chiyu just goes for a Protect. Just, you have to play this waiting game a bit, as the Dazzling does come out, not doing that much damage to this Golden, but still providing the pressure that it gives you with, struggle doing not that much to the Screamtail, because of course it's quite bulky, as the Golden is able to go for an attack here, going for a Thunderbolt, I believe, onto the Chiyu slot, but Chiyu cleverly protecting once again, meaning this Golden is being put in a position where it does not like to be right now.
No, it definitely doesn't want to be in this position. I think taking a big attack from that Chiyu. You know, we are going to see another Dazzling Gleam come out. It chips down. It's doing a little bit more to the Dragapult. The Dragapult going for that struggle, getting some useful damage into the Chiyu, but taking a lot of recoil in the process and going down finally. You can see the useful, what a good utility the disable is here, just being able to prevent your opponent
Thunderbolt
from doing
going first this time around. It's faster than the Chiyu, but Thunderbolt not getting the KO, and the Dark Pulse going into that Goldugo, KOing with a critical hit on top, a nice bow tie on top, thanks to the support of Screamtail with the disable there. So really showcasing that Screamtail working quite well, especially even when the Goldugo is able to trying to ignore that. It doesn't really matter really what the Screamtail wants to do. The Goldugo is there, but then the Chiyu next to it just threatening turn after turn as well.
Yeah, the Protect plays there from Adam are really nice to, you know, preserve that Chiyu for the right opportunity. And like you say, the Screamtail was very useful in being able to kind of protect the Chiyu a little bit further than that and lock out that Dragapult to the point where it was locked into the struggle and it ended up knocking itself out. The Goldingo, though, wasn't really able to remove the Screamtail like you would presumably think it would be able to quite freely there, going for maybe a Make It Rain or something, especially in that position where it did get two nasty plots off and it was in a strong position. Just that threat of the Chiyu potentially putting Alessio off from going all out with that Make It Rain.
Yeah, the Screamtail just being able to put up so much pressure with Encore Disable, and as we saw, the Dragapult being put in a position where it could not do really anything. You still had the possibility to go for example for a Phantom Force, and now with the newly gained information that the Golden Go is faster than that Chiyu, then you can use that information and try maybe play around that. Now that you have that information, you know that you don't have to maybe fear the Chiyu all that much, as long as you're able to damage it. Because if the Dragon Ball was just able to go for a Shadow Force, for example, a Phantom Force, excuse me, into Chiyu, just even though it's resisted, it's damaged, and then Thunderbolt would have KO'd it.
Yeah, and I think that the big thing at the start of that match was you know, Adam losing the Flutterman the way he did. He felt, oh, he's not really got a, like, it feels a little bit behind in this match, but really, you know, once he got that Scream Tail onto the field, he was able to claw the match back quite quickly, you know, and then in kind of convincing form. And like you say, the Goldingo outspeeding the Chiyu was a big surprise, but you've got a bit more peace of mind, I think, if you are Alessio going into this match, where you think, right, well, I'm not going to let the same mistake happen. I'm just going to be able to kind of go for an attack if I'm in a similar position going into game 2.
Yes, and we have the Annihilate now on board together with that Iron Bundle. Iron Bundle being able to provide some nice support with Icy Wind, but unfortunately Dragapult being one of those Pokemon that has clear body, meaning none of its stats will be dropped, as a Tinglu as well, joining the field, making sure that any sort of damage that the Iron Bundle tends to go for, it will not be able to KO anything really either. It will do still quite a bit if you went for a Freeze Dart into that slot. You have the Terra Fire then an option, but yeah, you have a lot of mind games to play there, as the Dragon Ball actually opting to switch out into that Golden Go, as just going for a Hydro Pump into Tinglu, not even looking at the Dragon Ball. Well, we see a Bulk Up as well, meaning this Annihilate suddenly got a bit scarier.
Yeah, the Bulk Up's a nice option here, where it is going to become a bit more of an offensive presence on the field now, especially with that Goldingo now coming onto the field, and we do see that Sand Tomb there going into the Iron Bundle, where it's not going to be able to switch out now, and the Goldingo coming onto the field does have access to Thunderbolt, going to pick up the knockout if it is targeting into that slot this next turn, especially if it's not protecting, and then it's not really going to be that threat to the Dragapult the further we go into this battle.
Yeah, the Annihilate being actually quite of a bit of a scary presence, because as soon as you hit that Annihilate, meaning its Rage Fist, its power will be doubled there, being 100 base power. As Tinglu avoids the Hydro Pump there, as we see the nice block from the Golden Go, just wanting to do a bit more damage onto the next Pokemon. As we have a Rage Fist actually trying to predict possibly another Pokemon coming in, or maybe misclicking there, as the Tinglu does take that quite well. And we have the Stomping Tantrum together with that Sand Tomb. Is this enough for the kill? Ooh, barely missing out, but that nice Hydro Pump dodge by the Tinglu, being quite nimble there, just being, whoa, nope, don't want to touch that there.
It is one of the drawbacks, as we know, about the Iron Bundle, though. You kind of play that risk-reward game like we've talked about pre-match, where it does have a bit of a low accuracy, and sometimes it can cost you if you move the Tinglu from the field here. It does give you the Pokemon advantage, but you're going to have another goal this turn, right? Yeah. You're going to be able to kind of get another Hydro Pump off, and hopefully that is in a position where it can pick up the knockout. Unfortunately, it doesn't really. Adam didn't get the kind of the prediction right there with the Rage Fist. You know, predicting maybe Tinglu to switch out on that position. Unfortunately, it didn't happen. But we are seeing the Terastallization now come out from this Annihilate, going into that Fire Terror typing that we talked about pre-match, and is going to be not worried about the Goldingo anymore.
No, not really. The Goldingo with its Mega Rain not being super effective, and then we have Thunder Wave, as we actually have an attack from the
huge freeze.
It's an Iron Bundle into that Annihilate, but freezing its own ally. Oh no, going for that freeze right, trying to boost its Rage Fist, still being stuck there. Sand Tube coming out, meaning this Rage Fist is now 150 base power, but this Annihilate is stuck as well. And now the Iron Bundle going down, not being able to provide any speed support right now, meaning this Golden Goal at +2 is able to go for a free Thunderbolt if it wants to go, and a bit more damage. Ooh, thanks to that Sand Tomb as well. Wow, that was
a huge turn.
That was a huge turn.
And you can see the thinking there from Adam, where he's wanting to get an additional boost for that Rage Fist later on in this game, but it backfiring totally there, freezing the Annihilate and making it unable to move going into this next turn, making things a lot easier for Alessio. And yeah, just it's not something you see too often.
No.
There. It makes sense. You go for an attack that's not that effective because of your Terror typing. but you don't expect the freeze, and
No,
that really
exactly.
unfortunate for Adam. There is a chance, though, that you can thaw out this next turn, so that is a possibility as the Fluttermane now enters the field for Adam and does put on a little bit more offensive pressure from his side of the field.
Yes, and now with the Tinglu being, of course, a ground type, being able to hit this in line for super effective damage, even though it is bulked up, it will still provide a bit more of damage. As the Goligo going for it, it's Terra Water, trying to make sure that it will not get hit super effectively by a move from this Fluttermane, like a Shadow Ball, and being certainly able to survive this next to the Tinglu. Tinglu being not really being able to hang on here because that Moonblast, of course, still very strong, and it is still choice spec. Meaning, is this Annihilate faster or not? It is not faster. We have to make it rain. Fluttermane going down. Is the Annihilate gonna unthaw? It needs to unthaw right now because that Goligo needs to go.
If it does unthaw, it is going to be a huge turn and a shift for Adam in this battle, but
Ooh,
here we go. We
the
do see the Citrus Berry activating, so a little bit of health restored here. Big question now is, do we see it thaw?
Oh,
and it's locked in, it's frozen, and the Goldingo has a great turn there for Alessio, getting rid of the Fluttermane. You do lose a Tinglu in that turn, but I mean, it's worth it there just to be able to remove that Fluttermane in return with that Make It Rain.
Yeah, exactly. And now Cherfaoui coming in, lowering the defenses of all Pokemon here. You can go for potential KO onto this Amoonguss here. You can be redirected as well. So you have to start thinking, do you go for another Make It Rain? It's still a +1. It will do less damage on this Annihilate than it did earlier. But this Annihilate can wake up, well, not wake up, can unthaw at any moment. It's quite funny to see Annihilate with a candle on his head and still being frozen somehow.
Yeah, we do see the Amoonguss go for the Protect here just to kind of stall out a turn, hoping that Annihilate does thaw out. But we are going to see the Icicle Crash into the Annihilate, adding on that effect that it can go for a flinch, and the Thunderbolt from the Goldingo enough to pick it up. Unfortunately, Annihilate not able to take advantage of any of those Rage Fist boosts, the bulk up that it got off earlier because of that freeze. Really unfortunate for Adam, but Alessio Blurn to all his outs here, doing a fantastic job, and now pressuring down against this Amoonguss. The Cherfaoui, perfect Pokemon against it, tying this round up to 1 apiece, and we are going to be going into a game 3. What a way for us to go into game 3 as well. The most unlikely scenario where you think that the Iron Bundle would not be freezing your own Pokemon, would be doing...
You'd be thinking they'd be friends.
Well, you can see that you knew it was going to go down that next turn because of the Sand Tomb. The Sand Tomb going to get that additional residual damage at the end of the turn, taking it away, allowing something else to come in. So maybe just getting, you know, some value out of it to boost that Rage Fist additionally going into that turn. But unfortunately, completely backfiring. First time I've seen that. And it does give Alessio a bit of a lifeline, but all credit to him. He played that game after that point perfectly.
Yeah, quite perfectly, exactly. What was interesting to see as well, because if the Annihilate was not frozen there, it could have definitely have provided a very strong Rage Fist into that Goligo, possibly, very possibly KOing it, meaning only Cherfaoui, and then it was a Dragapult, I believe, in the back there. You still have Amoonguss to redirect any moves, so the Annihilate was able to possibly heal more damage thanks to Drain Punch on the Cherfaoui, or just KO the Dragapult if needed. There was still going to be some mind games there, so the game wasn't completely, like, fully decided with that freeze, but it would have been nice if it didn't happen, of course.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think that it wasn't a game-deciding moment, but it did swing the momentum back into Alessio's favor for sure. If the Annihilate, like we mentioned, did unthaw at any stage in those next 2 turns after the freeze, I think it would have really put a lot more pressure on Alessio. It maybe would have been able to take down the Goldingo at that point, I think, because of the Rage Fist boost that you'd already get in. So, and like you said, dealing with the Cherfaoui pretty well. In all respects, you know, the Cherfaoui doesn't have access to a dog type move. It would have to rely on that Sacred Sword, and it does ignore the bulk up boost, which is great, but it's not doing the damage that you need from that point, and it's not going to out damage Drain Punch at that stage.
Yep, as we have 2 Amongus's on the field, 2 Amoonguss, Tinglu, and of course that Iron Bundle. Iron Bundle probably learning its lesson, not going to hit its partner Pokemon anymore, as we have immediately switched out from Adam's side from his Amoonguss, as the Fluttermane coming in, trying to see if the Amoonguss might go for a Sport Net into the slot of that Iron Bundle. Iron Bundle just going for a Protect there, as just going for the Sand Tomb, doing a bit of damage, but Fluttermane not really mining that hard that it's here. Amoonguss going for the Spore. But Fluttman still being able to go for a possible double knockout onto this Amoongus if the Iron Bundle goes for a freeze dry into it and then followed by a Shadow Ball. It could definitely possibly be a KO for the Amoongus, or you could possibly just go for a freeze dry plus Moonblast. So you're being put in this situation where you just have to really think like, all right, what does my opponent want to click?
Yeah, and that's the problem here. If you are Adam, I think you've got the easy choice of going into that Amoongus slot to know that it hasn't got access to protect. If you go into it and it does terrestrialize, and you force the terrestrialize onto it, and you're in a bit of maybe a bit more of a favorable position where you know the Goldingo isn't going to go for that terrestrialization later on.
Yep.
And you also have now, you can see the Fluttermane has come onto the field. It is affected by that Sand Tomb. It is locked in and committing to that terrestrialization to maximize the damage. If we don't see a Rage Powder here from the Amoongus, it could go into that Ting-Lu, but we are seeing the Ting-Lu go for the terrestrialization as well, all around on the field now, fire, so will resist the big
sort of
fairy type
coming
moves,
out.
but you've got to be wary about this Iron Bundle as well. They're firing off a huge Hydro Pump, but
still
able to take it very,
well.
very comfortably.
And now the choice specs, Moonblast coming out into the tomb, not really doing anything. Assault Vest, Fire type, and the Heavy Slam into the Fluttermane, just kill the Fluttermane. You had a 50-50 there, and you had to choose what was going to happen. Do you focus down the Amoongus, or do you focus down the Ting-Lu? And now Amoongus is still able to move, meaning a Spore might possibly come, and a Spore it is into that Iron Bundle, meaning this Iron Bundle has to be asleep for at least one turn.
It's a really, really smart terrestrialization choice there from Alessio, because you think the natural choice would be the Amoongus. But I think when you're going for that Fire Terror type, it is a bit risky in front of something like the Iron Bundle. But knowing how you've built the Ting-Lu, I think you're pretty comfortable at that stage thinking, well, I probably know I can take a Hydro Pump. It can miss as well, so I'm willing to take that risk. And if I do get this terrestrialization off, I can pick up the knockout onto the Fluttermane and then punish the Iron Bundle with a Spore. And that's exactly what's happening, is put Alessio in the driving seat in this match, and everything for Adam to do now. The Amoongus coming onto the field, and of course does threaten with its own Spores onto the Ting-Lu, so that's something that you have to be aware of as well. And the Amoongus is in a position on Alessio's side of the field to utilize that Pollen Puff and top that Ting-Lu's health right back up.
Yeah, very possible to do that, as we see a switch from the Iron Bundle actually into that Annihilate. Annihilate still being able, one of those Pokemon that can still possibly get this game back on track, especially next to Amoongus being able to redirect. And if the Iron Bundle decides to wake up as well, any possible Ice Winds, we have the Pollen Puff into the Annihilate, meaning that Rage Fist is now suddenly boosted as well. You can try to redirect, but we have the Spore from the Amoongus into that Goldugo. Very well switched there, trying to make sure that his Goldugo was able in a favorable position, but not so fantastically favored right now. Oh no, I just realized the Annihilate doesn't have its Terra Fire anymore.
No longer Terra Fire. It has been used on that Fluttermane. So the Fairy Terra typing has been used. The Annihilate is going to be susceptible to these Make It Rains that can be fired out from this Goldingo. The Amoongus is going to be able to support it very well here, pulling in any attacks, while the Goldingo, as you see, goes for that nasty plot, and it is in fact outspeeding that Annihilate. The Iron Bundle switch in on Adam's side of the field, as we do see a bulk up from the Annihilate. And the nice thing about the Iron Bundle being put to sleep from earlier on, for Alessio at least, is that that speed control there is not an option now to support that Annihilate. And the Make It Rain after that nasty plot is really threatening both things on Adam's side of the field.
Yeah, the question is this Annihilate able to take one Make It Rain from this Goldugo at +2? Because it has bulked up now, it is of course a bit stronger thanks to its Rage Fist as well, but now it needs to make sure that it is able to hit this Amoongus and fully KO it. Make It Rain doing absurd amounts of damage, doing quite a bit. This Annihilate suddenly getting stronger. He's like, oh, this Rage is gonna be strong, man. Eating its little berry there, trying to make sure to keep itself healthy. That Amoongus is gonna feel his fury as the Rage Fist comes out into that Amoongus. Is it enough? It is not enough for that Amoongus. And the Amoongus is also just gonna eat its berry as well. Nice lunch break.
Yeah, and I think the nice thing that Alessio's done here is set himself up perfectly, because this next Make It Rain, he knows he's faster than everything on Adam's side of the field, is going to pick up the knockout onto the Amoongus. Now, do you switch the Amoongus out to activate the Regenerator? But at the same time, if you leave the Annihilate on the field open here, it will potentially go down as well. And then you're going to have to spend a turn going for the knockout on the Amoongus on Alessio's side of the field, which I don't think you've got room to do. I don't think you've got room to target it down. You're in a real awkward spot here.
Yeah, this seems quite hard. The Annihilate actually holding on still there with 1 HP or 2. Wow, quite impressive to see, say the least. But of course, Make It Rain lowering the special attack of the Golden Go, going for that Rage Fist into the Mungus. Now clearly going for that KO. But now you're in a position where the Golden Go is now back at neutral.
Yeah.
What do you do with your Annihilate, which is slower than the Golden Go and definitely slower than the Cherfaoui as well?
Yeah, and you've got the Iron Bundle to come back in, which we know is asleep, so it's not going to be able to support like we mentioned the last time it came onto the field. Didn't really do anything, switched straight out to the Amoonguss for that support option there. But again, the Annihilate has taken so much damage now. It did big survival there, but with that Ice Shot there from the Cherfaoui, enough to pick up the knockout and put this Goldingo in a position where it is going to be able to Thunderbolt into this Iron Bundle and do some big damage here. The Iron Bundle doesn't stay, it doesn't wake up, and we see a huge Thunderbolt is, not quite enough because of that focus slash that the Iron Bundle has access to, so we'll have to have one more turn. But we know the Ice Shot is there from the Cherfaoui, and it is going to be able to lock this one up. Flip around this match from that turn, that game 1 for Alessio, coming away victorious against Adam. Huge congratulations.
Yeah, exactly. Alessio really adapted quite well, knowing with all the information that had been given. His Golden Go was faster than the Annihilate, his Golden Go was faster than the Chiyu. With all that given information, he knew that the Golden Go was the way to go. The golden way to go, yeah. That's
the golden way to go, I love it. I think you're completely right there. I think the Goldingo was the key to winning that match for Alessio. We saw how effective it was in that game too. Now we did get a bit fortunate because Adam, unfortunately, like we've mentioned, did freeze his own Annihilate, which was a real turning point in that game. It did make things fall a little bit back, but all credit to Alessio here, capitalizing on that situation and really come to the forefront and taking this match by storm after that point.
Yeah.
And, you know, I think the big thing was for me, for Adam, I think choosing to terrestrialize the Fluttermane just didn't feel like it was the right choice. I think looking back at the match, I think you really wanted to terrestrialize the Annihilate. Give yourself that resistance to
It was
make
a hard
rain.
call to make.
It was. And I think the big thing was I was probably expecting a little more damage onto that Tinglu myself when you saw the Hydro Pump. And then obviously the Moonblast is resisted, but it's still coming off a choice specs Fluttermane at that stage. But you can see the value of having Tinglu with the Assault Vest. And then when you've got that preferable typing after terrestrializing, it really makes it such a difficult Pokemon to deal with, and it just put Alessio in the driving seat after that. After you got that heavy slam into the Fluttermane and you were able to remove it from the field, it was kind of like, well, now I can get Goldingo onto the field. If I get a nasty plot up, I'm going to be in a great position because I know the speed tiers at this stage in the match from all the information that we've got before now, and I can really just kind of assert my kind of self into the rest of this match and make it very difficult for Adam to kind of get any footing after that.
Yeah, exactly. It is, as you said, the situation, that was the deciding turn there, I feel, because you could have just doubled up into the Amoonguss, but then you had the threat of the Amoonguss still being able to protect, if I recall correctly, if this Amoonguss had protected.
The protect on the Amoonguss wasn't an option for Alessio, so I think Adam had the option for going for that Amoonguss, which could have been a nice option, I think. If you went doubled in on that slot, you do leave the Tinglu open, so probably whatever you do in that situation, you're going to lose your Fluttermane. But I think if you got rid of the Amoonguss there, that's a good enough return, especially if you don't commit to the terrestrialization there.
Yeah.
But, you know, it's easy for us to sit here and say, obviously, this was the better thing to do, but this is why we're sitting and kind of analyzing. But like I say, I think the Amoonguss probably was the big thing to kind of remove in that situation. Then you can deal with that Tinglu a little bit later on. You've got Annihilate to come in, and then you've got the terrestrialization with the Annihilate. And we saw how effective that was for Adam, especially in game 1. You can utilize that again, and it gives you a bit of a better matchup against the Goldingo that has been so good for Alessio in that set.
You didn't want that Goldingo next to that Amoonguss. Those two are best buddies for a reason right now. That was a deciding factor, and of course, game 2, unfortunately, the freeze. It does happen. Game 1, though, if we're looking, I'm trying to look back. And Adam had like a bit more convincingly there. He felt like more in control there. But yeah, it's just sometimes when you lose the momentum, you sometimes lose the momentum of the mind as well, where you're just like, oh, okay, okay, he froze himself. Okay, now suddenly got to think, I have a chance. I've got this. I'm going to do this. You keep motivating yourself and trying to find the best option to do. And Alessio clearly found it by terrestrializing his Ting Lu in that one turn, because that was the deciding factor.
Yeah, and I think you make a good point. I think if we go right back to the start of the show today and we talk about how important this event is for a lot of players, there's a lot of added pressure on that. If you're coming into this event and you're really relying on getting championship points to get your Worlds invite, either that be a day 1 or a day 2 invite, there's a lot of pressure. And then when a situation arises that you're maybe not expecting to happen, because at that point in the game where the freeze happened, Adam was in a really good flow.
Yeah,
and he was really controlling
he was like,
the game, and he was doing everything right. And that was really unfortunate. I mean, the chances of the freeze happening there.
Yeah, it was unfortunate because it would have put him in a very good position. Golden Goal suddenly gone after a Rage Fist. You still have the Dragon Ball and Cherfaoui to deal with, but like getting rid of a Golden Goal was quite important there.
Yeah,
as we saw in Game 3 as well.
And it could have changed as well, because he could have thawed, you know, the turn, 1 turn, 2 turns after that, and still been in the match. But I think the fact that it just didn't thaw out, it just really slowed him down. And
sometimes Lady Luck, it looks differently from time to time. It's one of those things. Pokemon, amazing game. You have these amazing things that you have to think of, but you always have that bit of chance of luck that can happen, where you can see a lot of players as well think about it as well. Of course, freeze dry, not that big of a chance of freezing, of course, in that regard, but yeah, it can happen.
Yeah, and just at the completely the wrong time as well. And we didn't really see too much more from the Screamtail. I think Adam kind of identified that it probably wasn't the best option to bring against that Goldingo.
Yeah.
There had been such a problem in that game too, so not relying on that. Although it did provide a lot of support against something like the Dragapult that we did see from Alessio's side of the field. But I think not being effective against the Goldingo, like you mentioned in that match with the Goddess Gold ability, giving it that immunity to the Encore and the Disable.
Absolutely.
It really makes it a tricky Pokemon to bring, as good as that kind of potential support and options can be from the Screamtail. It's just not the Pokemon you want to bring against Goldingo.
Yeah, I think Alessio really tried to adapt as well, because like he saw what won Adam the game there, so wanting to adapt to that, not really wanting to deal with that Screamtail again, because Encore Disable, it is sometimes not seen that often, but if you have such a fast, bulky Pokemon that is able to do things like that, it just makes it that much more difficult, and you have to deal with it. So just bring the thing that automatically wins against it, like Golden Goal, like trying to think about that and play around that.
Yeah,
does help quite a bit. But yeah, it's step by step. You have to think, what is my opponent doing? How can I avoid what my opponent wants to do?
That's it. And I think the other thing to mention from this game is how well both players kind of utilize their Amoonguss once again.
Yeah.
I think, you know, we tend to talk about Fluttermane, we look at the usage stats, and it's undeniable that Fluttermane is top of the usage stats, but I think the most valued Pokemon on a lot of these players' teams is the Amoonguss in this.
Is the Amoonguss,
absolutely. Is it's so flexible in what it can do in a match. It puts on so much pressure for the type of Pokemon it is as well. Yeah, and the redirection is massive. And I think when we came into the match, you know, we identified on Adam's side of the field, he doesn't have any sorry, on Alessio's side, he doesn't have any of the safety goggles anywhere that we normally see to give a little bit extra support against the Amoonguss. But it didn't really phase him, because you don't really need the safety goggles when you've got that Goldingo and that good as gold ability.
Good as gold. Good as good way to gold. Amoonguss is one of those Pokemon where we might not see the usage stats being on top, but it is a Pokemon that's always on players' mind, where with the safety goggles, Lumberries, substitutes, everything. That's a lot of things to try and circumvent whatever Amoonguss tries to do. But no, we will be talking about that a bit later. But we have now the winner, of course, of round 4, Alessio, with an interview as well, and we'll be watching him right now.
Welcome, trainers. Thank you so much, Simon, for that introduction. I am here on the floor with the winner of the last round, Alessio. Alessio started strong, still going strong. 5-0 currently. How are you feeling?
First of all, I want to say congratulations to my opponent, because without that freeze, it was a very tricky situation. I didn't bring Tauros in game 2 because I wanted to shake things up, and I was paying for that. hopefully, in certain situations, you always find a way to, come back, but it was very hard. So the freeze definitely had a huge role. I played well game 3, but game 2, I've been lucky.
Yeah, that freeze is definitely something I think people want to talk about. Like how relieved were you when that happened, or what was going through your mind during that turn?
I was like, oh my God. To be honest, I was in oh my God mode since the turn 1, because when I saw Annihilate, I was like, okay, now how I get the KO on him, because I have no tools for that. I had to like become a wizard to get KO. Iron Bundle made the job for me, but usually I'm the one who got freezed. This time,
this time it was the opponent getting freezed.
But yeah, I was worried, of course.
No, I believe you, because especially since the Goldengo was not yet in its Terra form, so a Rage Fist in that situation I think would have hurt a lot. But speaking of the Goldengo, I wanted to ask you, because we did see outspeed not only the Annihilate, but also the Chiyu. So was Adam's Chiyu just very slow, or are you playing a very fast Goldengo?
It's a fast Goldengo, but it's actually a slow Chiyu as well. It's not designed to outspeed Chiyu, but yeah, when you play such a fast Goldengo, it can happen if you have in front of you a safety goggles Chiyu, probably it's bulky, and to not sacrifice any offensive threat, yeah, usually you build it slow, so probably was the case.
Right. And another very unusual thing about your team is that on your Chi and Pao, I believe you're not playing any dark moves, right? You don't have any Sucker Punch or any Throat Chop moves, but you are running Ice Shard, so a different kind of priority move.
Yeah, Ice Shard, it's actually cool because it got me the victory against several Terra Grass Pokemon. For example, round 4, I faced a Choice Scarf Chiyu, and it was a Terra Grass Chiyu. And I had this game plan of, I go for Aqua Jet. If the Chiyu Terras, I win because I have Ice Shard. With Sucker Punch, that scenario is much more complicated. But it's one of the many more scenarios for the peak of the Ice Shard. Yeah. It's very cool.
So
with
that's really, really working out for you in this tournament so far. It's really working out for you, this tournament.
Yeah, it's working out. To be honest, I'm facing a couple of cores, like New Balance or Spanish good stuff. And of course, Hyper Offense with King Gambit. Basically the two type of teams. This was the first exception of my run, and it was a mixed matchup because of course Screamtail is tricky to face. You need Goldengo because it's immune to the status moves, but at the same time you have Chiyu, you have Iron Bundle who trace the Terra, Goldengo, so I have to play very careful, and not bringing Tauros on game 2 was a mistake because I have to bring at least one between Tauros or Among Us, because if he brings Annihilate, I'm in trouble.
Yeah. No, but you did play very well so far, like especially that game 3. I was very, very impressed with that, so well done. I'll let you get back to the tournament in just a moment, but before we do that, is there anyone you want to maybe shout out, say hello to?
First of all, my family, because I started my path in VGC tournaments, in terms of major tournaments, thanks to them. My friends, of course, my teammates of Capital Underdogs, and to my best friends, Silvia and Gilberto. Shout out to the Lumination team of Project Lumi, especially Yudi, because it's a very close friend of mine. And last shout out to Sidonia and the staff of Italy, of the Italian streaming, because they are very good guys. I started to play VGC thanks to them, so thank you guys. Vi voglio bene.
Right, well, thank you very much. We will go to a short break, but stay tuned because we will head right into round 6 very soon. So stay tuned.